I'm Eleni Jakos and welcome to Connecting Africa, the show in which we look at the stories and people impacting how the continent conducts its business. This month, we explore aviation in Africa with 731 airports on the continent and 419 airlines. It's an industry which generates $80 billion in economic activity every year and has the potential to drive economic growth further. First up, we look at air cargo, a bright spot for the airline industry during the coronavirus pandemic. Air freight became a global lifeline, transporting medical supplies and personal protective equipment. In June this year, African airlines were leading the way, increasing freight volumes by 33.5% compared to the same period in 2019.
Cargo is, I have to say, very positive in Africa. It coped well, it increased beautifully, it supported a lot of the aviation industry, the jobs, whether it's in the airport, the cargo agents, the handling agents, ground handling agents, and so on and so forth. It kept some of the jobs going and some of the airlines going, and it's a positive point.
Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi, Kenya, handled the most cargo of any African airport in 2020. It's the central hub for Africa's leading cargo-only airline, Astral Aviation, which expanded its fleet during the pandemic.
I would like to introduce you to two members of our fleet, the Boeing 727-200 freighter, which has a capacity of 22 tons and has a range of 4 hours. This is the aircraft that we actually fly to most of the countries in Africa, thus improving connectivity. And I'd now like to introduce you to the newest member of our fleet, the Boeing 767-200 freighter, which we started flying on the 1st of January this year. We have very big plans for expansion in Africa. The first thing that we are planning to do is to increase our fleet from 14 to 20 aircrafts, which we will be doing over the next 12 months. And these are only cargo aircrafts. In addition to that, we are setting up a hub in West Africa, and we are setting up a hub in Southern Africa.
Astral Aviation is not alone in boosting its cargo capacity. Some passenger-led airlines have pivoted their business to meet the market shift.
So right now we are sitting in the world's first converted or repurposed Dreamliner, the 787. And this one alone, we've dedicated it to cargo, this and another one like this.
During the pandemic, the airline boosted their cargo capacity by over 500 tons per month.
Until now, cargo has been about 10% of our business. We want that to grow progressively to over 20% of our business. In other words, to double it within the next 3 to 5 years. Of course, our goal is to try and connect as many destinations, as many points as possible within Africa to our hub in Nairobi, and of course to each other as well. We are predominantly an African operator, and that's how we want to position ourselves, because we believe there's a lot of potential in the continent. So we continue to grow that niche.
Further growth will lead to greater employment, with the sector already supporting 6.2 million jobs on the continent.
For an aircraft, one aircraft to take off, it requires over 100 people. Just one aircraft, one takeoff. And for us, we have about 100 takeoffs every day. So, you need a lot of people to get things going.
The teamwork behind the smooth landing, unloading and loading of an aircraft has been compared to Formula One.
The analogy will be very close to a pit stop. So where you'll see all the different tasks around the aircraft, and then we'll have a minimum ground time when all the activities have to take place for the aircraft to depart on time.
Sharif Fall oversees the handling of 24,000 tons of cargo per year from Félix Houphouët-Boigny International Airport in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire.
National Aviation Servicing is a ground handling company in charge of passenger services, ramp services, cargo services throughout mainly currently the African network. We're present in more than 15 countries in Africa, and with the vision of expanding all over Africa.
With higher volumes of goods being handled during the pandemic, FAL believes this accelerated the sector's development of technology and infrastructure.
Technology definitely helped the business, mainly in cargo, through the systems we're using that's helping to have a better visibility for the customers, to speed the process and to be able to track at each state of the goods throughout the chain up to the customers receiving it. Just in Côte d'Ivoire, in 2015, when we took over, it's over $30 million that we invest in ground handling equipment, as well as in training for the staff. We currently just opening new stations in DRC, in South Africa. We just opened Guinea-Bissau, and the objective is definitely to be the leader of ground handling in the African continent.
The International Air Transport Association is hopeful passenger travel will also increase as much more countries sign up to the single African air transport market, which seeks to open up Africa's skies and promote connectivity.
Aviation has jumped up in the domestic markets. So if you look at Europe's domestic market, aviation's picking up beautifully. If you look at the US, it's actually hitting pre-COVID-19 numbers. China the same. That's the domestic market. If we can convert Africa to a domestic market by removing the barriers within themselves, then we would have the exact same condition. You would have a standard that's applied across the African continent. It's getting all the relative stakeholders to sit on a table and understand the importance of alignment. It's the alignment issue that needs to be handled in Africa. Once we get past that hurdle, I think you would see a boom that will probably make history in Africa.
So this plays a very, very important part in the aviation industry in Africa, that we're actually going to see a positive growth of between 5 to 15% for the air cargo sector in Africa. A lot of it is going to be moved by air, and also a lot of it will be moved with other forms of transportation.
Logistics expertise are key to ensure the smooth movement of goods and services around the continent. Starting a life as a car dealership over 70 years ago, South Africa's Imperial Logistics have grown to become a global logistics leader. We hear why Africa is their central focus. Up next. Welcome back. In this show, we like to highlight the companies who are finding solutions to some of the continent's biggest hurdles in doing business. A lack of transport infrastructure is one such hurdle. South African company Imperial Logistics have made it their primary goal to become the gateway to Africa by connecting people with goods and services across a broad range of industries. In pharmaceuticals alone, Imperial delivers to more than 3,573 delivery points in Kenya, 1,300 in Ghana, and 52,000 across Nigeria. We spoke to their CEO to better understand why Africa is such a key market for them.
I'm Mohamed Akuji, CEO of Imperial Logistics. Our purpose as an organization is to connect Africa and the world and provide quality products and services to its people. Our ultimate dream is to be the go-to partners for companies looking to get their product into and out of Africa, because we can provide virtually an end-to-end service in terms of our capabilities to get product right to the point of sale, or right to a mine, or right to a manufacturing site. We have to focus on where we can compete and win. And Africa is our home ground advantage. And one of the biggest challenges for multinationals that want to get their product to the consumer is that the routes to market in Africa are very different, and each country is unique. So if you take a country like South Africa, we have a very big formal retail route to market. So we've got shopping malls, we've got formal retail. But if you go to a market like Nigeria, 95% of consumer goods are bought in informal markets. And that's where Imperial comes in that we have got great distribution and routes to market in virtually all the key channels. So in a market like Nigeria, through our healthcare channel, we get to 50,000 points of sale, and that would be pharmaceutical wholesalers, hospitals, and pharmacies. In Ghana, in our consumer business, we get to 30,000 points of sale in terms of our distribution channel. In Kenya, we get to 4,000 or 5,000 pharmacies, and I can go on and on. We have a very strong road transportation business across Southern Africa, and we're looking to expand into Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, DRC. Those countries are landlocked, and a lot of product, particularly commodities and agricultural products, need to flow there. It will be a game changer for South African logistics and African logistics, because they are a global ports operator that are looking to expand their port network in Africa. We are a logistics company in a different capability, looking to expand our business on the continent, and the combination of that is very powerful.
Hello, this is Connecting Africa. I'm Eleni Jakos. In the show, we are looking at the people and companies connecting the continent and changing the way businesses operate. Aerospace manufacturing in Africa has been gradually developing over the past few decades, with more and more companies, particularly in South Africa and Morocco, as well as Tunisia, supplying parts to major aircraft manufacturers. The potential is huge, with the global value of the aerospace manufacturing sector estimated at over $1.5 trillion. South Africa has the most developed industry, with an annual revenue exceeding $1.8 billion, employing thousands of skilled workers.
Many people flying around the world in sophisticated modern jets built by Boeing and Airbus and others may not be aware that some of the parts in those sophisticated aircraft were made in Africa.
Welcome to Aerospace. We are a supplier to the international commercial aerospace market. Our main customers are Boeing and Airbus, and we manufacture products ranging from thermoplastic parts to composite parts to major assemblies.
South African aerospace manufacturer Aerosud became the first supplier to Boeing on the African continent 20 years ago.
All the major jets and business and general aircraft are manufactured outside Africa. So African companies, if they want to get in on the supply chain and the value chain, they have to form joint ventures with major international aircraft manufacturers like Airbus and Boeing. And they're doing this, and it's been very encouraging.
African Aviation Services has been working with major players in African aviation on how to develop the industry for the past 30 years.
South Africa definitely is leading the way. If you take the overall aerospace industry in South Africa, it's highly developed. Aerosud is one of the most successful aerospace companies in Africa, and in South Africa in particular.
If you are flying a new aircraft that was built after 2005, you will find that there's thousands of parts on that aircraft manufactured and delivered from Aerosud. So it means that in the end, our product is essentially back in the aircraft that would come to South Africa or to Africa or the region.
While they're the largest privately owned aerospace manufacturer in South Africa, they're not alone in contributing to the supply chain on the continent.
In South Africa, we have an ecosystem of aerospace design and manufacturers of roughly 100 companies that you can typically recognize as brands and as exporters. In Africa itself, if you look north, specifically at Tunisia and especially in Morocco, you will probably find another 300 companies out there that are typically joint ventures or sister companies of big suppliers to the OEMs.
Aerospace exports to Safran Electrical and Power in Morocco, but the majority of parts are delivered to Airbus and Boeing in Europe and the US.
In addition, however, what we can do is we can subcontract some of the manufactured items in South Africa. And for that we have developed quite a nice supply chain in South Africa of roughly 10 companies that work closely with us.
Stein believes that more public funding is necessary to localize the supply chain further.
We have no local program or domestic program that aims to develop any products in South Africa. That means that the companies typically have to fend for themselves and to look for opportunities outside the country. And that in itself is one of the biggest barriers.
That's very much the case. I think one of the things to emphasize in the aerospace manufacturing is that it requires you to be part of what is called colloquially an apex sector, a sector that for the rest of the industry sectors spawn out new technology, innovation that gets picked up by other sectors, which is where your leadership in terms of technology development and technology leadership comes from.
There are signs of growth in niche areas of the aerospace industry, with a South African startup building the first cube satellite on the African continent in June this year.
These smaller niche technologies are going to have quite a boom in the coming era. And I believe that's where Africa should really be aspiring to go to.
Coming up next, we reveal how Morocco has managed to develop a thriving aerospace manufacturing hub. Welcome back. Over the last 20 years, a quiet revolution has been taking place in Morocco's aerospace industry, where there used to be just 10 aerospace manufacturers. Now there are 140, employing 18,000 people working across all aspects of the supply chain, from engines, electrical wiring to assembly. Welcome to Morocco's aeronautics headquarters. In this industrial park and economic free zone, 30 kilometers outside of Casablanca, a cluster of the biggest aerospace companies, including Boeing, Bombardier, and Safran, manufacture aircrafts for Africa and the world.
We mapped out the trade that exists in our region, and we noticed that there were gaps in the value chain, and we focused on filling in those gaps. Today, we make up to 38% of an airplane, which is huge.
Airplanes are more than a flying piece of metal. They are made up to 6 million parts that require highly specialized skills to build. American manufacturer Collins Aerospace says they have recently expanded their factory here by 50% to grow their suppliers and expertise in the region.
Welcome to Collins Aerospace, the biggest aerospace plant in Morocco. In Africa, 80% of the commercial fleet is equipped with Collins Aerospace avionics. These are for a commercial platform on Airbus A320 and A330. We are since a decade now in Morocco, and we are the center of excellence for cockpit and cabin equipment. So these are safety equipment, and they are used to pilot the aircraft. On this specific product, almost 60% of the parts are produced here in Morocco. We see a huge potential for the African continent to connect African countries to each other.
While it's a rapidly growing industry, there are a few obstacles in the way for Africa to take ownership of the value chain.
Unfortunately today, the large majority of the companies are foreign-owned. We have very few 2 or 3 Moroccan-owned, but this is a start.
120 out of more than 140 aerospace companies in Morocco are part of what is called the Boeing ecosystem, making parts for one of the world's largest aerospace companies.
You must be aware about the fact that we are in a very global industry. That means there are few actors at the top. There are more than 20,000 suppliers. It's very, very strong competitive between these suppliers. And it's time also to have Moroccan funds involved in this industry. We are working on it. And this is one of our targets in this new phase of aerospace industry, is to have what I call more inclusive industry. Inclusive in terms of high-level human capital included, more Moroccan capital, and more women included in this industry.
We are right now focusing on developing local industrial activity for aerospace, and for that we need talented people.
Training facilities at the Moroccan Aerospace Institute are guiding the way for the next generation to prepare this value chain on the continent for takeoff.
EMA is a key answer to the needs of the industry. It gives solutions. This training center has 10 years. He delivered nearly 10,000 talents, technicians, and we are working on the new phase. And this new phase will be in the heart of the revolution of the aerospace industry. That means the airplane zero emission.
The green plane, which is planned for 2050, will be zero carbon. It's going to require a lot of research and technology to develop the engine. We are talking about hybrid engines, which will generate jobs and a lot of research and development.
There are a lot of engineers within Africa that can be a part of this international industry to help in this area. We can have young people from Africa being part of this new revolution of the aerospace industry.
Exciting times for aerospace manufacturing on the continent, and with South Africa and Morocco leading the way, here's hoping more local manufacturers can join the fray. As ever, it's great to shine a light on people who are championing African industry. So please read more stories on our website. And until next time, stay connected.